Hi, Thendo, how are you, man?
Hey, Itumeleng, how you doing? Good, thanks, and yourself?
I'm good, my guy. Can't complain. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to a conversation with you.
Yeah, no, thanks for the invite. I'm also looking forward to it as well.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who's Thendo? Where did you grow up? Things like that.
Yeah, cool. So my name is Thendo Mulaudzi. I am married to my beautiful wife. Well, beautiful in my eyes, I guess. I have a 15-month-old daughter. I'm also one of four children. So I grew up in Venda. Others will say I didn't grow up in Venda because I didn't spend too much time in Venda. Moved to Pretoria when my dad got a job in Pretoria at the age of 9. And then I went to an art school, funny enough, called Pro Arte Alphen Park. So that's where I matriculated a couple of years ago.
We're gonna start adding up the
Now, I'm
year.
trying to add up how many years it is, but the maths kind of failed. But I think it was about 16 years ago. Yeah, class of 2004.
Oh wow, cool stuff. So where in Venda were you for the 9 years that you were there?
Yeah, so we lived in a in I guess in town. Well, I wouldn't really call it town, but I guess the area is called Toyando, which is I guess what you would call the financial district of Venda, or the economic hub of Venda. But that's where I grew up. So I went to school there. I went to primary school there, and kind of lived yeah in Toyando. So that's where I grew up.
Okay, fantastic. So you matriculated in a school in Pretoria. And what did you want to do when you finished with your matric?
Yeah, so if you look at the school that I went to, right, so it's called Pro Arte Alphen Park, and it's not really one of your Pretoria Boys High, St. Albans, the Glen High, your typical kind of schools. It's actually an art school, funny enough. So similar to how in Joburg here you have NSA, National School of Arts. So that school actually specializes in hotel management, art, drama, dance, and enterprise management. So while the students were doing ballet and the hotel students were cooking and all of that stuff, so I specialized in computer studies and accounting. So what it meant is that at that art school, you spent a lot of your time in that specialty or in those subjects that you were doing. So when I left, obviously, it was either two options. Either I do the computer science route, which, funny enough, all my friends went to Tux and all did the computer science route. I followed the accounting route. So I wanted to be a CA. So I went to WITS. Did I know what a CA did? No, but all I know was at that time that I wanted to be a CA.
Yeah. No, look, being a CA, it's kind of a prestigious thing. I can imagine where you were. But let's go back to the school a little bit. I mean, I hear a lot about the art school, and now you've given us a sense of how different the curricula is. So there's
Yeah.
multiple streams within the school. Is there an opportunity at any point for you to explore those streams before you choose your specialty, or you choose your specialty from the onset?
Yeah, so not necessarily. So it's I guess when you get to grade 10, right? That's where you kind of branch out. So grade 8, grade 9, I guess a lot of the subjects are similar. You do your typical English, maths,
Oh, okay.
all of that subjects. Then I guess when you get to grade 10, standard 8, back in our days, that's where you choose your subjects, and then that's where you branch out and you do the specific field. I mean, there were those who kind of started the ballets and whatever from sort of grade 8, standard 6, but grade 10, by then you should have made up your mind, and you can't kind of change between specialities.
Ah, okay. And you talk about ballet for the second time. Did you do it?
No. I do not do ballet. I mean, I certainly don't have the talent to dance. I have two left feet, as my wife always says.
All right, good. So you went to Wits to study for a CA route. Did you know which qualification would help you get it, or what qualification did you actually register for?
Yeah, so initially I registered for I guess at that time, I still think it's called that. It's called BXI, so Bachelor of Accounting Sciences. So there was quite a difference between a BCom and BXI. So if you did a BXI, you knew you were on a 4-year route. You knew the subjects, so there wasn't a choice in terms of which subjects from a BXI point of view. So that's what I started. Started being the operative word. So first year, everything kind of went well. Only really just failed one subject, which was which one was it? I think it was computer maths, or I think it was maths. Yeah, one of these subjects where you have multiple choice, but if you guess wrong, you get penalized. So yeah, negative marking. That's it exactly, right? So that was the only subject that I failed. So then second year, I guess I started off, and everybody will tell you, second year is your hardest year. I think one also just from a culture of university, right? I mean, you've come from high school where you were disciplined. Now you're on your own. I was living at res, so I was my own person, right? I wasn't told what to study, when to study, so I had to figure it out. So first year I was quite disciplined. Second year, I guess I thought, man, this thing can be done. I did it in first year. So second year didn't go so well. I failed accounting 2, failed a couple of subjects. And then I tried accounting 2 again in my third year. Again, it didn't quite work out, but I had a buffer. So I took on additional subjects because now I'd passed some of my second year subjects. I had a little bit more flexibility. So I took economics and business finance. And then I guess my fourth year, which was now, my fourth year, but it was actually my second year. I then branched away from accounting, and then I specialized in economics, business finance, insurance, and risk management. So I did a 3-year degree in 5 years.
Wow, sure. That's interesting. And I must say, look, when you first said you went to WITS, I thought a little bit. I had a few friends that went the accounting route. It didn't go so well. I'm glad your first year went very well. Most of my friends left WITS after first year to UJ to try again.
Yeah.
And they eventually got it right. So it's quite a tough qualification that you're in.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
Cool. So you completed your studies, and then what happened?
Yeah, so I guess in my final year, as with most varsities, you kind of have these companies coming to recruit people into sort of what they call the graduate recruitment company. So I think I sent my CV anywhere and everywhere, had a couple of interviews. I still quite remember, I think some of them, Accenture being one of them, I think ABSA, F&B, funny enough, R&B. And you must remember it was competitive at that time. It was 2009, just after sort of the crisis in the US, right? So any job in financial industry was always going to be tough. So I got a job at AIG, American Insurance Group, which is an insurance company specializing mainly in sort of the corporate space. And that's where I got my first job.
Oh, wow. So every time I see AIG, I think it was on the Manchester United.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
And it was just a coincidence that I supported Man United, so for me it was a win-win.
What a sad thing. Well, I guess that was better because it was Sir Alex Ferguson who was looking after them, I guess. So
yeah.
All right, cool. So what was your experience? So did you go in as a graduate in AIG, or were you a sort of a junior accounting person or economics person?
Yeah, so I went in as a graduate. So what then used to happen then, it was a 12-month program. You did 2 rotations, one in one specific business unit, and then the other rotation in another business unit, and then they'd retain you between the 2. One, either way, there was a head count, and 2, if whichever one was your preference. So I did what is called, I must try and remember. So I used to underwrite. So essentially what that means is you would then decide the premium for a specific company. So you'd analyze sort of financial statements. So I guess my background in accounting kind of helps. So you'd analyze the company's financial statements, understand the company, understand if they had certain losses, and then you'd have a premium. So D&O is actually quite common these days. So it's directors and officers insurance. So it's where if you are sued in your personal capacity as a director and an officer, your company kind of have insurance against that where you're sued in your personal capacity. And then did my second rotation in, I can't even remember the business unit, but I didn't really like it. So after the year was done, I then was retained in my original team where I did my first 6 months rotation. And that's where I ended up.
Okay, awesome. And I'm so now, Thendo, explain to us. I mean, it sounds like it's an international organization. You're in insurance. You studied economics with some insurance courses in there as part of your specialization. What was the transition like for you as a graduate in a sort of a big organization? What were some of the things that you found interesting for you? What were some of the things that you found challenging in that space?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting. I mean, you go from almost being at the top of the food chain, right? Being in varsity, right? And now you're the top dog. It's your last year. You've got this thing figured out. And you go into the world of work where it's completely different. So you have to learn like a lot of stuff, right? One, how to send something as basic as articulating yourself in an email, right? You learn Excel and PowerPoint quite well because you're junior. So they have you working on a lot of presentations, a lot of analysis and stuff. So it was quite an adjustment, but I quite enjoyed it because I learned something new. It wasn't a comfort zone. So in the beginning, yes, it's overwhelming. And your first month is a lot of training, right? And you're like, but I'm getting paid a salary, but I didn't do any work, right? So, so there's that thing in your mind that constantly kind of weighs in to say, but what am I getting paid for? And then you always have that thing in your mind to say, okay, when are they going to find out I've made a mistake? So there's that pressure to say I'm going to make a mistake, but I mustn't let them find out. So there was all of that. And then you make your first mistake, right? And then you kind of expect to be shouted at, scolded at. And then you realize, actually, no, you're just human, that it's the world of work. You do make mistakes, and it actually does happen. So I think it's something that I've now recently, because I've got a grad in my team now, and I'm trying to explain to him that, listen, it's okay to make mistakes. You're in a grad program. You're going to make mistakes. It's okay. The whole point is you must learn from your mistake. And that's how you grow. So it was challenging, I think, the first couple of months, but I think sort of, to be honest, around sort of after the 6 months, sort of 6-8 months period, I think that's when I started becoming a little bit more comfortable.
Okay, cool. So things have changed for you. I mean, you wanted to become an accountant. You're now working in an insurance company. You redirected your qualification. What are some of your career aspirations? Where do you want to go? How did you navigate yourself around? Did you stay in IAG for some time?
Yeah. So I stayed at AIG. I think completely was about 18 to 20 months period. So after I was retained, I think the ultimate goal was to get into banking. I think after sort of deciding, to run for the hills with the CA thing, I then decided to go into banking. So that was the ultimate goal, because I did business finance, right? So you're learning about mergers and acquisitions. You're learning how to do evaluations. You're learning all of these terms: internal rate of return, net present value, and you're like, okay, cool. Now I've set myself. I'm gonna go into banking. So I applied again for a program at a company called Citi. There must be a thing about me and American companies.
I want to see, like, what do you
So I applied for similar to kind of a grad program, but I guess what they do is they take people who've got a little bit of experience, but not too much experience. It was an analyst program where it would be a 2-year program. You'd spend some time in South Africa, and you'd spend some time sort of in London. So who didn't want to go to London? So I applied for that role. I didn't get it. But the lady who interviewed me kind of liked me. She says, look, I see potential in you. Here's this role. I read that job spec. I did not know what that role was, what I was going to do. And I said, yes, I'll take it. At that time, I think the role was an implementation manager. And I think that's what they had. Took the role. I mean, I hadn't even been working for 2 months. So I figured, okay, cool. This would be me learning something new. I'll get this job. And as soon as I get it within 2 years, I'm going to get into the investment banking division because that's what I want to do. So anyway, I went to Citi. And I joined as a trade finance manager. And essentially, I guess what that role was essentially to assist clients who sort of in the corporate space with cross-border transactions. So if you were importing and exporting, we would assist and facilitate those transactions. And it's usually, you know, when you're importing and exporting, there's either an element of trust or there's an element that you don't know the counterparty who you're dealing with. So it had an element of risk management. So that's what I did for when I joined Citibank.
Awesome. Sure. That sounds quite interesting and very different to what you did before. So I can understand what you mean when you say you looked at the profile like, what is this?
Yeah.
So, Thendo, what helped you get to grips with the type of role that you are now in? It's clearly not some of your experience. So what did you do to help yourself understand what the role is about and make a success of it?
Yeah, so there was quite a lot of training, right? So I think what helped me at Citi was a lot of training, right? So that definitely helped. Two, just the hands-on approach of the company. So I mean, the office wasn't that big, so you don't have a lot of people within the South Africa office. So the training helped, on the job training. And I guess you have your peers and your colleagues, you know, who also want to help you succeed. So I think that's what has led sort of my career, you know, in terms of transactional banking. So, like again, the goal was to kind of get into investment banking because that's what everybody wants to do when they get into banking. So that really kind of set the foundation for me when I joined Citi. So the area that I was called in was called transactional banking. And here I am kind of almost 8 to 10 years later. I'm still in transactional banking. So I think that first role within banking really set and helped me to the current role that I'm in now.
Okay, cool. So hopefully you've seen enough from American companies. Hopefully back to South Africans. So what happened after Citibank?
Yeah, so Citi, funny enough, I got a short-term assignment to work at Citibank in Kenya. So I spent about 4 months in Kenya, which was really fantastic. I think, you know, if you ever do get the opportunity, obviously at your employer's expense, to go to another country, that doesn't help. I mean, that doesn't hurt. But I think that experiencing something outside of South Africa, different culture, different rules and regulation, really kind of spoke or woke up my passion for Africa. So I did a 4 months secondment in Kenya, and then almost like a year later, I got an opportunity to join Standard Bank. I'm still kind of within sort of the same area that I'm in, again in transactional banking. And it was an Africa role. So I looked after 9 countries in what Standard Bank calls Southern and Central Africa. So a lot of the countries within SADC, and all the way up to sort of Malawi as well. So that's how I guess I transitioned from an American company into a South African company.
Welcome home. So let's talk a little bit about Kenya. I mean, Kenya is quite a very fascinating country in a lot of things, even from a banking perspective. But I also hear they're quite creative and innovative in terms of how things are progressing there. If we have a good example is M-Pesa, which is doing very well in the market, still is doing extremely well. So what was the culture like in Kenya? And if you compare with the pieces of work you've been doing for the American banks, what were some of the distinctive things that made you feel like, I think I want to actually do some work in this space?
Yeah, so and I think you touched quite a bit on it, right? I think M-Pesa at that time was nothing like what it is today, right? I think so. I was in Kenya in 2012. So I think it had just started. It's funny, when I was there, a lot of people were like, how come you don't have an M-Pesa account? And I'm like, hello, please, I have a bank account. Why? What is the cell phone? What is the cell phone thing? USSD string, whatever. No worries. We don't have that in South Africa. So it really was just starting to take off at that time. So I guess a lot of banks, a lot of Kenyan banks, were trying to bank a lot of these, what we call MNO. So these telcos, and the culture and the people, I guess, are very friendly. I think I really was welcomed when I got to Kenya. The culture, the people, and just seeing something completely different, right? So the regulations in Kenya are very different. The traffic in Kenya is nothing like South Africa, right? Where in Kenya, it's we don't have traffic in SA, right? Let's just put it there. So it was a great experience. I think experiencing a different culture, a different way of working, a different language. So I picked up a little bit of Swahili while I was there. So I could hold a bit of a conversation in Swahili, and also you interact with a lot of experts. So UNICEF is also based, the headquarters is in Kenya, the African headquarters is in Kenya. So it's quite a large expat community. So it was great interacting with a lot of expats, a lot of people from different countries. So you're not only learning about Kenyan culture, but you're learning about cultures and experiences from different countries. And you also have a lot of people traveling between Kenya and Uganda, right? So you're learning other cultures, you're learning a little bit about Kenyan history. So it really was an eye-opening experience. And like I said, I think that's what really ignited my passion for Africa.
Okay, awesome. So now you're in Standard Bank, looking after 9 countries, still in transactional banking, you say?
Yeah.
A bit what transactional banking is and what kind of responsibilities you had specifically around those 9 countries.
Yeah, so transactional banking really is, as I think what most people would say, or people in my business unit would say, it really is the sort of the engine of the bank, right? So the way that you've got to look at it is day-to-day banking for corporates. So we help corporates in, how are they receiving their money? Are they receiving cash? Are they receiving electronic transfers? Are they receiving money through sort of swiping at a device? So next time when you go swipe your card, that money must be collected into a bank account. And essentially, how are they paying? How do we automate all of these payments? How are we ensuring that, when they pay the salaries are done on time? And how do we show in efficiency? How do we ensure that also when they don't have what is called working capital? So essentially, every company kind of wants to do 3 things, right? So receive money as early as possible, pay money as late as possible, and hang on to money for as long as possible. So we help with all 3 streams of that. So my role then at Standard Bank was to kind of drive that, to drive new products. So what are clients asking for? Because at the end of the day, banking, we're here for our client. So what new products and solutions are our clients asking for? How do we ensure that, one, the product is fit for the clients? And can we sell the product? Is it fit purpose for our clients? And equally, are the economies of scale? So looking after, I guess, a few markets. If you bank a client in one country, how do we make sure that we're banking them in the next country? If we're banking them in a Mozambique, how do we ensure that we're banking them in a Zambia? So it was really just, one, to drive a lot of automation and processes, and 2, also from a sales point of view, to make sure that we are banking the clients in sort of the ecosystem, which I think a lot of people talk about these days as the ecosystem.
Okay, sure. Sounds fascinating. And I mean, you have the good view when you have 9 countries that you look after. And say, if I have client X, do I bank them in another country, and what's your strategy to do it?
Yeah.
Sounds really, really cool. Okay. And then from there, so now it sounds like you are smack bang into investment banking a little bit from what you are saying. So your career has gone into where you've been anticipating. So what's next for Thendo? Is it growth within that space, or what were you exploring after that?
Yeah, so it was growth within that space. So I sort of did that role for 3 years. And really, I think I had reached a point where I had peaked. I think I got to a point where we'd rolled out a lot of new products. We'd also trained and upskilled a lot of the in-country teams. And I was also kind of looking for my next. And even then, also in that period of time, I guess I love secondments. I was seconded to Swaziland. So I used to drive to Swaziland on a Sunday night, and then drive back on a Friday. So really, I guess I wanted what you then call an in-country experience. So yes, you're driving strategy, you're driving new products, but you'll hear a lot of people talk about in-country experience. So what's it like being in country and doing all of these things for a specific country? So I kind of spent almost a year, if I remember, just looking for a role, because I wasn't just going to move for the sake of moving like I did at Citi. I mean, from AIG to Citi, but this time I had a slight idea of what I wanted to do. I still wanted to stay within transactional banking. I wanted to grow within the business unit. So I had the product element, and now I wanted to get the sales element to kind of complete the full circle, right? Because when you look at your peers, you kind of understand, okay, what's their background, right? Where have they come from? What did they study? What did they do? How did their career kind of progress? What kind of roles did they do? So I thought, look, if I at some point want to manage a team, want to manage a business unit, I need to get the sales and hands-on experience, and I need to have sort of what we call in-country experience. So I then transitioned into the South Africa team. So usually in most organizations, they'll split the Africa and the South Africa team. Yeah. So I joined the South Africa team, and I did sales, for a year. And when people think sales, they think, geez, you must sell. It must be targets. But really all that it is you're a trusted advisor to your client. You're giving your client advice on what's the most efficient, I guess, aspects of the business. Yes, you've got targets, but I think it's very different to what people think. You're always selling. No, all that it is you're talking to your clients, you're guiding them along the journey, and you want them to bank with you, and you want them to be as efficient as they can be. So I guess after 3 years, I then joined the South Africa team and spent a year kind of doing sales.
Okay. Cool. That sounds interesting, because now it sounds like you've mapped up your career path in terms of where you want to go. So you want to head up the division that you're looking after. You want to have a couple of people that you look after, and now you're saying, what am I missing to get to that point? And you married the two quite nice to say, I've understood product development, and now I need a bit of sales. So now you got sales under your belt. But before we get to the next step in terms of what happened, I think that in-country experience that you spoke about is quite interesting. I mean, it's not as easy, and I think it's mostly difficult for South Africans to be in-country, because often if you're in South Africa, it's almost like Africa is somewhere else, right? Africa is somewhere else. It's like South Africa is an island, and then there's the rest of the continent. So what was your experience like in Swaziland? Was there similarities with Kenya, or what did you find challenging in being someone in country working for the same organization, I guess?
Yeah, so Kenya was completely different, right? I don't think you can compare the two. I think Kenya, when you think Kenya, it's similar to East Africa. So you can compare Kenya to Tanzania and those countries in East Africa, right? Yeah. Swaziland, or Eswatini as they call it now, it has the same kind of flavor to SA. A lot of multinational corporations that are in SA are in Eswatini. So it it almost didn't feel, and I think that's what made it a little bit easier. I think it's also very difficult, after being married, to kind of leave your wife and go to a different country, right? But I think it made it when I was Kenya, I was single, so it was fine. It was easy to pack up my bag and just leave. So I wanted to be close to home, one, and two, I guess because it feels like SA, it didn't feel too different. So a lot of the clients you find were SA-based clients that are now in Swaziland as well. And I think what also helped helped my career, or along my career path, was the fact that I had a sponsor. And I think people generally tend to have a mentor, but you must distinguish between a mentor and a sponsor. So fortunately, my sponsor was still within the bank. He looked after Africa and Southern and Central Africa in its entirety. So I guess that opportunity also came about because he was heading up the division. So we'd often talk about, career aspiration. I saw where his career came from. He was a CA, started off in finance, and his goal was he was going to be a CFO of Standard Bank. So he worked his way and was like, okay, I need to get here, and along his path, his journey also changed, right? He got into product, and now he heads up a unit, a business unit within sort of the product spectrum. So I think that helped my career, and that I had someone who was a sponsor who I could also talk to, who also guided my career to start saying, think about this, start thinking about 1, 2, 3. And I think that's really helped me a lot to where I am today. I think if I didn't have that guidance and that person to speak to all the time, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah. Cool. And I mean, you raise a very important point that in a career, you need both. You need a mentor that you kind of deal with technical things with. And then you need a sponsor, someone who actually opens the doors and says, here's an opportunity, go for it. I think it likens your passion, it likens your potential. So I have the chance to bring you with me. So come across, or I know someone that can take you, and then I become your person that supports you in that space, which is a very powerful thing that you need in your career, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. And then where to from there? So now you are did you finally get into that space where you're heading up?
So I mean, in chatting with my sponsor, I guess we had kind of outlined, what I was going to do and what I needed to ultimately get to my role. And so I guess we had planned, well, not planned, but we were talking about, look, this is what you need to do next once you get here. So never think about your next role, think about the role after that. So you must almost map out 2 to 3 steps ahead, right? Don't just say, okay, this is the next role that I want. You've got to think of what is the next step after that. So it was kind of mapped out. I was on track. I'd started in sort of sales, and then I'd be a sector head and then a unit head. So it was almost, I knew the path that I needed to get to. And then I got an opportunity at First Rand, at Rand Merchant Bank. And it was a bigger role. So essentially what happened was I got to skip a step in my career with the opportunity that I got at RMB. So telling my sponsor that, listen, I'm in talks with RMB. Yes, I know there was this plan, but I get to skip a step in the plan. It's a great organization. What do you think? And I think it was actually a very nice conversation, because he talked me through, a lot of people leave organizations and a lot of people leave roles, and a lot of people leave roles for, either because they're unhappy with their managers. What I am leaving for is something that the organization cannot offer me. So he cannot tell me to stay. What I then need to do is make the best of that new opportunity in the organization. And also within the new organization, find a sponsor, find someone who will guide me along the career path. But also, I must still plot what my next role is and future role is after that. So I joined, I guess, FNB or RMB or First Rand about 2 years ago, actually, on the 1st of September 2018.
That sounds fantastic. And now you skip the level into the next role that you kind of didn't probably know about, but at least understood it could be potential for you. And you've spoken a little bit about your sponsor suggesting that when you get into that new space, continue to find a sponsor and find someone that can help you with your career. So how do you go about finding a sponsor? I mean, is it a brown nose thing? What is it?
Sure, I must say it's difficult, right? Because when you join a new organization, you want to find your feet, you want to prove yourself, right? So here I had a task of, okay, I need to prove myself now, because I've come from a new organization. I feel I had skipped a step, and I think it's often where when you want your sort of the next career, you've almost said, I've ticked 120% of what the job spec asks, right? So therefore I'm ready for this role. At that role, when I saw the job spec, I was like, "I, my daughter, I don't meet the criteria." But I guess, I mean, as people kind of develop around your career, I guess you find that it's a lot of it is just skills. It's not, and the higher you go, it's not about technical know-how, but it's your sort of interpersonal skills, how you deal with people. So fortunately for me, I had dealt, or I had people who I worked with from Citibank and Standard Bank when I joined RMB. So it was easy for me to then reach out to the people who, and what also helped was they were in the same business unit, right? So that helps in that your sponsor must, I mean, because your sponsor is basically the person who kind of talks about you behind closed doors, right? So you also want someone who's in the same business unit. So fortunately for me, I'd had two people who were senior, who I worked with in both organizations, and I asked both of them to be my sponsor. So that really helped. I guess the past experience really helped. I guess finding a sponsor in a new organization. And you also find that it's a small banking world, right? That a lot of the people who you worked with, found them, and you're asking, what are you doing here? And they ask you, what are you doing here? But I guess because it's all kind of one big banking ecosystem. So the fact that I had two people who I worked with within the previous organization was an easier step for me to quickly identify who I need to find as my sponsor.
Yeah. And I think you're mentioning a very important point to say your work ethos from where you started is important because it builds up your network going forward. I mean, imagine if you were very arrogant and different and however in Citi, these guys would not want to sponsor you. They don't want to associate with you.
You know, when they say that saying, never burn your bridges or never leave on a bad note, because what you find is a lot of jobs you see sometimes it's you apply for the role, but people obviously do the background checks and whatever, but word of mouth, people do call, hey, do you know this person? You worked with them at Standard Bank. Oh yeah, no, this person did well, he was great. He met all his KPIs, whatever the case may be. No, he's a great hire. So never burn your bridges. I guess I was fortunate in the sense that I left, Citi on a good note. I left Standard Bank on a good note, which really helped, I guess, me finding a place within Rand Merchant Bank.
Yeah. Okay. And so, I mean, you've been in Rand Merchant Bank for about 2 years now. I guess you found your feet, I guess, running a function and looking after people. You spoke about looking after grade a little bit. Do you want to share on what's your sort of philosophy around developing people? I mean, talking about your own career trajectory, clearly there's stuff you've learned over time. And now that you're looking after people, I think an important component is to create those career opportunities for them as a leader. Do you have opportunities to do that, and what's your principles around it?
Yeah, so I mean, this is the first role where I've managed people, right? So it was very daunting, right? Coming in, having people report into you. So one, I had to learn very quickly that you cannot do everything yourself. Yeah. Right. In my previous roles, I mean, it was easy. I executed, I was in control, so I could do things. Now you've got to learn and you've got to trust your people, one. Two, you've also got to create opportunities for them where they are learning. I'm always telling my team, the business and organization needs to function when I'm on leave or whether I'm not here. And the only way I can do that is through empowering you guys. So exposure is one of the key things that you've got to get people to do. You've got to expose your people to senior people within the organization. You've got to expose them to training. And also, you've also got to make sure that, their personal stature or their personal matters are happy. So if I'm unhappy at home, for whatever reason, when I show up at work, I'm not going to be happy. So there's always that element where you've also got to connect with your people about, how they're doing at home, how they're finding work-life balance, how the kids doing, because everything is a relationship, right? So again, the key thing is trust. So and you've got to trust that the person will do their best in their job, but you've got to empower them. You've got to allow them to make mistakes and learn from the mistakes. So I think having a grad as well, having someone to kind of train and to teach from day one was also challenging because, as we call it, AMA 2000, they ask a lot of questions, right? So, I mean, I was like, when I was a grad, was I shy or did I not ask enough questions? Why do I feel like this new grad in my team? But I guess it's also their generation. So I found with him, I've had to improve a lot of my listening skills to understand him. So there's listening and there's hearing him. So hearing him, hearing where he wants to go, where he wants to go, but also spending a lot of time with him so that he is comfortable from the first year of work that, you almost create a safety net that he knows, okay, cool. My first year of work was great because I had all these support structures. It means that I have belief and faith in the organization and I can grow within the organization.
Yeah, sure. I think you raise a very critical point, especially when you're dealing with younger people in your team. I guess the dynamic is the same, even if you have older people in your team, because then when you are kind of the younger person, it's kind of tough to look at someone who could be your dad's age and try and give them direction. It's ridiculous to think about it. But in reality, in corporate, there's no age. There's a leader, there's people that reports to a leader, and you have to get a job done. So it's quite important to kind of understand how to navigate. And I like the points you made about understanding who they are, where they are, how they're showing up at work, even from a personal perspective, which is quite. So any challenges that you want to share? I mean, your career seems like you've spoken a lot about the challenges in the studies part. From a career perspective, it sounds like it's been going smoothly and you may have explored things you were not aware of. But has there been any sort of bumpy roads where you felt like, okay, here I made a big mistake and I need to look back and sort of re-engage myself and do something else?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it all sounds like it's a perfect story, right? But I guess there've been a lot of challenges, and I think I'm now back sort of in the Africa space, which I really love and I really enjoy. So one is it's getting everybody to pull their own weight, right? That's always a challenge in corporate, and especially dealing with people in other countries, as different cultures. Often as South Africans, we're told, hey, you guys you want things and you want them done now, but that's the pressure of the working world. So there's a lot of those challenges that I guess you need to deal with and sort of in the background. So those have been really challenging. I think my patience has really been tested in a sense of dealing with people and getting everybody within the value chain, because again, you can't do everything by yourself. You need everybody within the value chain to do their work. So that's an area that I've battled with. I think often I've been told I'm too nice. I don't escalate people, but that's an area that I battle with. I battle to kind of ask people to kind of, guys, we kind of need to accelerate. We need to push things, and that's something that I'm constantly learning. That look, escalation doesn't necessarily mean that I'm telling on you. It means something is stuck in the value chain. In order for it to move, I need help from other people to get it moving. It's nothing personal. I'm not, kind of telling on you, but it's, look, here's this thing that's stuck in the value chain. Let's get other people to kind of try and help us to move it so we can progress and then move on to kind of the next thing. So that's an area, I guess, throughout my career that I've really, really battled with is escalating people.
Yeah, I think we need to change that terminology, escalation, because I think that's where the battle is. It's just every time you think escalation, you almost feel like, okay, this person cannot handle what needs to be done, so I need someone else to kind of come deal with it. So maybe we must find a different term, because like the idea is it's like any process that you follow. If there's a bottleneck somewhere, things can't move. So you need someone that has the right mandate to open up the process again and allow things to flow. Because otherwise, if things are not flowing, we have a problem. Then the organization is not going to perform, we're not performing, and there's issues down the line. So it's important to kind of find that maybe a better terminology rather than escalation. We'll get there at some point, I guess. So thank you so much for sharing your story, Thendo. I think it's been quite interesting to hear about investment banking, or at least parts of investment banking that you spoke about. We got to understand transactional banking a little bit better. We got to know who you are. Any sort of final thoughts or ideas you'd like to share with people that are listening?
I guess it's what I'm always telling my grad in my team, right? Because I think I'm also learning through him, right? So as much as he thinks I've got this thing figured out, right? I'm learning a lot of things through him, and he challenges me, funny enough, and we don't talk about it enough. I guess it's when your career path and where you think you want to be and where you want to end up, it's okay if it doesn't happen in all the steps that you want it to happen. You don't always have to kind of figure things out, in terms of your first job, your first role, that, it's great to kind of have an idea of where you want to go, but it's okay not to have that sort of step within the first kind of year or first 2 years of working. So one, people are generally hard on themselves, especially when they started working, is about, I need to figure out where I need to go. So take time, one, to figure out where you want to go. Take time to figure out what it is that you want to do. And don't be afraid to put yourself out there, because your career is yours, right? And often a lot of people, so as much as I have my people who report into me, their best interest of heart, if they want other opportunities, I should let them go and explore them. So you've got to create opportunities for yourself. Your career, your manager will help steer and guide your career, but ultimately your career is yours. So go out, venture out, speak to people, speak to senior people within organizations, find a sponsor, and also read, right? I think that a lot of the time we mistaken a lot of things because we haven't done research. So read books. And really, I think for me, as you can hear, I love speaking. What has really shaped my career was speaking to other people within the organization, understanding their background. You'll find now there's a lot of engineers in banking, which you always think engineers will go into engineering fields. So speak to different people, speak to them along their path, plan your path, and always have, what is your next step, but what's your next step after that, and what you need to do in order to get that. So always plan kind of 2 steps ahead. I know I've said quite a mouthful, but I guess in conclusion, that's what I would advise other people who are listening, to kind of plan their careers.
Cool. Thank you so much for that. I think you said a very interesting stuff, which sparked 2 questions in my head. I thought I would have closed there. The one question I wanted to ask you was around, network opportunities. How much of the golf course influences network? Especially we have been being in sales.
So I actually only recently started playing golf, maybe about 3 years ago, right? So a lot of it doesn't have to be on the golf course. Yes, I think if you have an interest in golf and your clients play golf, I've never done business on the golf course, but I understand how it happens, right? Because you're spending almost 5 hours with a person, but you don't necessarily have to play golf to network. So if there's a town hall within your organization, stay 2 to 3 minutes or 4 minutes after the town hall to speak to other people within the organization. Where there's functions from business different units, stay around and chat to people, speak to them. So networking doesn't necessarily have to be always about playing golf, but it's about where there are certain things that enable you, like a town hall, like a team meeting, like interacting with other colleagues. Use those opportunities to essentially network.
Yeah. And then the final question then is around, you said it's easy for you to speak to people. The biggest challenge I find in people in corporate is they struggle to go to senior people and speak to them because there's no courage. There's just a lack of courage. So where do you find that courage?
Sure. So it's maybe I didn't use the right word. So it's not as easy as it seems, but I think you've just got to put yourself out there, like I said. And I guess kind of, before lockdown, it was easier where you'd bump into someone in a lift, you'd start talking and you'd simply just say, hey, can we have a coffee chat, just for me to understand your business, what it is that I can do from my side to kind of add value to your business, but also where can we exchange ideas? And those are the small things. It doesn't have to be ultimately formal, but what I had found is a lot of, I guess, what they call these coffee chats, and the reason why they have coffee shops within the organization is exactly that, for people to network.
Yeah.
Yeah. So use those opportunities where you're sitting in, having coffee with someone, and someone passes by, to just say, hey, can I perhaps just have a minute of your time? I'd like to, just speak to you about a few things. Can I set up a coffee conversation with you? I always say the worst thing that they will say is no, right?
Yeah.
But I can tell you 9 times out of 10, and I've seen this with my career, they generally say yes. And you just set up a quick 30-minute conversation, and then from there, then it then builds on, and that's why you grow the relationship.
Awesome. Thendo, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your words of encouragement. I think I really enjoyed listening to your conversation and just your career path. It's so motivating to say sometimes, yes, you've spoken about planning and planning ahead. Sometimes even your plans get changed a little bit and you can augment them, which is great, and allow yourself the opportunity to learn. You've allowed yourself opportunity to be trained, to learn from others, to be guided by others. And that's the essence of what makes a great career, I guess, for a lot of people. So thank you so much for sharing your story and for motivating all of us. It's quite cool.
No, cool. Thank you for your time, and thank you for, I guess, for allowing me to share my story with other people. And by the way, I haven't stopped learning, so I'm looking forward to learning from this platform, and learning from other people about their stories and their journeys. Because, like I said, I think you will never stop learning. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Thendo, and have a lovely day further.
Cool. Thanks. You too. Cheers.